All right. So what I did is, as Jenny mentioned, I spent about 26 years working for local government, and I worked with a large size one like Charlotte, being the senior engineer on a light rail project, $650 million project. You learn a lot about real estate and development. And just to let you know, before we opened the project for business, I myself, before I left Myrtle Beach, I kind of got engaged with reviewing plans for about $2 billion. Developers came in from all over the United States excited about the project. So that tells you how high profile that project was and how many developments brought into downtown Charlotte. It's all the way from downtown to Pineville. You walk by there on the trail and you could see all these multi-story, high-profile, expensive condominiums, shops, restaurants, and everything. So over the years, I learned this process, and I learned it more as I became a town manager because I was sitting next to council making that final decision whether we should approve a project or not. And this flow chart is summarized. You can't include everything in it, but I think it kind of gives you an idea for any activities of pre-development. And as Michael, our president, mentioned, later on we will couple this session with multiple sessions that talk about investment, engineering, planning, architectural, and etc. Let me go ahead and start by the top of the slide. And I hope you could see the arrows. I think that's not an exact way, but it kind of, I would say this is the path that you have to take in order to get your project approved by right or by rezoning. So if we start on the first slide, if you are the developer yourself and you have what we call a concept. Concept simply is the idea. What is it? Multifamily? Is it commercial? Is it a single family, etc.? So what happens here is if you are qualified to take it on your own and you so experience of the entire process, have at it, because probably you're more advanced than us. But if you're not, there are a couple combinations there. Let's say you are an owner of the property and you have a notion or an idea for it. That would be one case. Or you get approached by investors. They come to you and they know you are in the real estate business and they say, do you have any promising projects out there that we could be engaged with? Or you are a professional in the business and you're looking for a piece of property. So either you own it, you're looking for it, or somebody approached you for it. The first thing I would advise here is if you have not done any project in the past and you don't have that full knowledge or ultimate knowledge of developing a piece of land, I would recommend two things. Two things that I think they are very critical and very important. The first thing is hire a consultant. This consultant could be an urban planner, a civil engineer, or a real estate professional that done this before. And then this is what they're going to provide you with. The engineer is going to put a concept for you. This concept is needed not only to impress your investors and put you at rest, but also because it's needed to present it before the jurisdiction that's going to sign off on your project. So let's hold on for a second on hiring the consultant. Let's say you want to buy a piece of land and you know what you want to do with it. So here you have to hire a surveyor to do a boundary survey to make sure that you have the acreage that's listed on the plat on the property, and then hire the attorney to do the closing. One item I do recommend all the time, if you hire a surveyor that does physical, what I mean by that, everything that exists on that property, and also the boundary included in your records with the jurisdiction record of deeds. And the reason for that is if you don't do anything with it, people are always looking. They might look at it and see all these features and see the plat in there, which is a lot of people don't include the plat to the document. It's good to have it in there. All right, so let's say right now, the second item that I recommend all the time is to get going with. If you're capable of doing feasibility study, do it yourself before you move forward with anything. If you're not, have the same consultant doing that for you. Now, here's why I recommend these two. One is required. Two, it puts you at ease. And investors, they love it. When you meet in that conference room and you start changing slides and the investors are sitting in there, they want to see that fancy concept of yours, why your concept is it will work. Why is it better than any concept, other concepts? Well, you might be able to do that, but because we use a lot of softwares, we have a lot of experience in putting the concept together for you, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. The second item, when you're sitting there and talking about money, financial, and investment, and you do have a feasibility study, that's very convincing. So those two tools, in addition to your expertise in the business, will bring it to the top. If you ask me, you say, well, Patrick, what is the size of project that you will do both? Anytime you're doing single family development, townhomes, condominiums, commercial, whatever, I think it's a good idea to do that because it'll open your eyes to strategies about the project. And there are a couple of slides about that. We'll show them to you in a little bit. But just remember these two, feasibility study and conceptual plan. If you come to me and say, well, Patrick, if you want to do both of them for us, what would you charge? I would say a conceptual plan, and you're going to see an example in a little bit where when you talk to a town manager or council, when they see it, they're going to say, wow, it will cost you probably about $5,000. That's cheap. We do it because we're not only looking into doing the concept for you, but we also hope that later on you give us the civil engineering, architectural, and do the entire project. All right, $5,000. Should I put $5,000? All right, if you're building 50 townhomes and the market is $300,000 for each townhomes, that's $15 million. What is $5,000 out of $15 million? That is null. That's inexpensive. That is nothing. And also the feasibility study, they range from $2,000 to $5,000. It depends on the size of the project. All right. So here we just given you a tool that will increase your success of getting this project approved. You could do a lot of stuff. But if you don't get to that yellow cell that I showed down there where it says approval, denial, then you didn't get anywhere and you spend a lot of money. Now, you might turn around and say, well, Patrick, architectural firm and civil engineering firms, they do that too. Yes, but most of the time you're signing a contract with them to do the whole thing. And sometimes you do a separate contract for the concept. But with us, along the way, give you an example. A member got a hiccup with wetlands, and he said, you know what, that bridge is going to cost a lot of money, Patrick. Why don't we hold on the concept? Let's not finish it. That's okay. So she only spent about $1,300, and I'm going to show you how far we went with that much money. But that's the difference between us and other consultants, is that we work back and forth with you. If you see an alarming or uncertainty along the way, we're with you. We will stop until we figure out what is the best way of going over that obstacle. All right, so let's say right now we're ready. We develop a conceptual plan, which is needed, that you need to go and submit before council. So what we do is, most of municipalities, you call them and you say, I'm a developer, I got my consultant with me, we want to come in and present a project for you. What do you require? Every municipality have an instruction list for that. But what the first meeting, what do they require? They just want to meet with you and see what kind of concept you have. All right. Who does meet with you most of the time? It's the planning department and the engineering department. When I was a town manager, I wanted to be in every meeting of those. Why? Because it helps me to engage, get my feedback and all experience, and then also learn about the project. So if I get approached by council, I could turn around and say, you know, Jenny's project is an excellent project. We want it in town. It will generate $120,000 in taxes every year. So I could pave the way. And at the same time, I will make sure that the planning staff and engineering staff, they are not going overboard. Some planners in some municipalities, they favor certain things in certain areas. But that's not what you want. That's not what Jenny or Mike wants. They have a concept and they want it to happen. So me attending the meeting, I'll keep everything within bounds. All right, so they scheduled the meeting, and please keep in mind with COVID right now, things are taking longer. Even if you call, sometimes people don't respond promptly, and we do understand that because they're not there from 8 to 5 like they used to be. Now, why it's a good idea to have a professional person do the concept for you? Because what we do, if you look under this $5,000 that whoever jotted that down, look at all the cells, all the way from the review local codes, all the way to the U.S. water and wetlands. When we do the concept, we will read every document. On top of that, if we're familiar with it, well, we know it. But we're not charging me or any other company, if they're agreeing to the conceptual plan for a certain fee, they have to go back and review all these documents and look at every department next to each one of these documents. And I'm gonna go over these documents by one, because a lot of us sometimes don't think that these documents exist, and how could they restrict our notion from happening. Comprehensive plan. Most of municipalities, they have comprehensive plan. And what is a comprehensive plan? Sort of, it's like the vision for that town. It's a 10-year, 15, 20, sometimes 30-year vision. What does it include in it? As an example, transportation. I have a 2-lane roadway right now. That's going to be 4-lane 5 years from now. Well, why do I need to know about that in the concept, or why my client needs to know? Because if you plan to put an apartment complex on a 2-lane roadway or a highway, well, 5 years from now, they're going to be closer when they're widening that road. They're going to be closer to the apartment, and that will have some environmental impacts on it. So I'll come to Jenny and I say, Jenny, you know, the apartment right now is 60 feet away from the edge of the pavement of this roadway. But if you want to own this apartment and you want to manage it and you want to continue making money out of it, if they come in with that 4-lane highway, it might impact the apartment later on, and it might not have the same quality of life that it has right now. And not only transportation, but also they have plans for parks. They have a plan for water and sewer. They have plans for a community center. So we go review all that. And when we communicate with you the concept as we're developing the concept, we will let you know, hey, look, we did the feasibility study, but they're planning on having 2 more parks. That's good for the town. And the parks, they're that far away from your project. That's a plus. People could walk to it. So water and sewer, parks and rec, public works, transportation, planning, etc. So that overrules the zoning ordinance. So when we go to the zoning ordinance, which is the Bible, this is where they ask, we will allow this parcel right here to be residential, multifamily, commercial, etc., etc. They have all the rules and the regulations. The UDO, you'll hear that a lot. It's a similar document, but it supersedes and go more into details than the zoning ordinance. So that's another document we review before we do the concept for you. And if we don't do it and you decide not to hire someone, you need to review those documents because they could be a block. If you don't cover certain codes and requirements, they could be a block to your project. The zoning map is the easiest one. You could go on the website to any municipalities and you go into the planning department, you click on any, you find all these documents, but the zoning map is there too. It's color-coded maps. You look at your property and you say, okay, well, what color that's yellow. Oh, yellow is what in the legend is residential. All right, so you know that you could do that project. It's residential, what you have in mind is single family, so you're good to go. All right, so, and look at each department. City planning takes care of the comprehensive zoning and the zoning map and zoning ordinance and the UDO. Engineering, they handle stormwater, storm drainage, land development manual, and traffic. All right, let's take each one of them, why they have to cover these things. Storm drainage. If you could remember these two terms, pre-development and post-development. Let's say you own 8 acres somewhere. There is nothing on them right now. All right, the drainage system is there. It's not impacting adjacent neighborhood. They're not impacting flooding. They're not causing anything because, you know, everything percolates in the ground and the runoff goes to creeks that they naturally existed there. But when you come in and develop that land, you are adding what we call impervious area. The building is impervious area. The roadways are impervious area. The sidewalk, the pad in the back, all that is impervious areas. So what do they do to the storm drainage? They alter the storm drainage, not only on your property, but to the adjacent properties. So the engineering department, including the state and including the feds, they have this rule right now, pre-development versus post-development. So if you develop that land, the impact of stormwater from that development should not exceed the pre-development, meaning if you're causing some runoff, that it could cause erosion, all that stuff, you might end up putting a pond on your property. You've been seeing these a lot. They started in the 80s. Anywhere you go these days, you see these ponds. What these ponds do is when the storms start, they take all the rain, they hold it in the pond. When the storm is over with, they release it in a small amount that it does not impact the creek system, the rivers, doesn't cause flooding, it doesn't impact your neighbor. Traffic. All right, let's say you want to build 50 condominiums or townhomes. All right, what we look at how many trips Jenny is doing every day when she leaves the house. Let's see, she drives a car, her husband drives a car, her child drives a car. So we take the number of trips, then we find out the number of trips for the entire development, and we say, all right, if this development to be connected to this street, we're going to have 1,000 trips per day. Well, that street is not designed for that. So there are some threshold each municipality has. Some of them, they say, if you increase it by 500 trips a day, we want what we call a traffic impact study. That study, it tells the county or the city, if we approve that development, you need to mitigate for the additional trips. All right, so if Michael is leaving that new development, he wants to make a left turn movement or a right turn movement, we need to make sure it's safe. And us as a consultant, when we do the traffic study, we might turn around and say, this is not going to happen unless you add a traffic signal. And what does jurisdiction do sometimes? They turn around to you and say, well, you're causing it. We expect you to pay for that traffic signal. That traffic signal sometimes costs $250,000. Well, you're not going to get the project. Why? Approved. Why? Because the consultant said you have to improve the intersection. And we're not going to put Mike, Jenny, or Patrick in harm's way by making that left turn if it's not a safe movement. So that's what the engineering department look at, stormwater and traffic. Now, the land development manual is detailed engineering stuff. How wide the street is, how deep the asphalt is, how deep the pipe can be, etc., etc. They look at that stuff. So we covered traffic, land development. Let's go to water and sewer right now. Some municipalities, they have their own water and sewer. Some of them, they buy it from adjacent jurisdiction. But to you, it doesn't make any difference. You get the bill in the mail. But bigger municipality, with smaller municipalities, sometimes they rely on the county. All right, here's my advice to anyone when he thinks of a concept for land development. You need to make sure that water and sewer, they're not too far away. If you want to do wells and septic tanks, that's fine, but it's a very, very complicated process. The land needs to be able to percolate that water and take the solid away from the tanks. And also, sometimes you have to go 200 feet in order to get water, to pump water to your residence. We're going to see an example of that in a little bit on one of the development. I want to talk a little bit about Union County. Mike is familiar with Union County. You need to do some investigation, and we will do that for you too. And what is the investigation? If I buy that piece of property, do I need to go 100 feet, 200 feet to connect to the water? And the same thing for sewer. That is not bad. But what the jurisdiction is going to ask you to do, that's going to be your cost. Now, if you are 1,000 feet away, 2,000 feet away, and you want to connect to their system, and I remember one member has asked me about 100-acre in Union County, and Union County having issues with water right now and having issues with sewer. The first thing I said, look, if you want to buy it to sit on it. But if you want to buy it and develop it right now, you're going to pay a lot of money. They're going to come after you, and they're going to make you pay for that 2,000 feet. This is what they call in North Carolina impact fees. Now, why each municipality, just remember the term, impact fees. Why do they charge developers with impact fees? Okay, well, you're a new developer. You came in from South Carolina, you want to develop something in North Carolina. Those residents that lived in that town for 30 years, they've been paying for that system to maintain it, take care of it, extending it. And you're coming in with this big brand new development, and you haven't paid a penny yet. So we expect you to pay for the extension. That's fair enough. But the state said, you know what? There is no law that it says you have to charge people. So they went over that, and they came up with something for 81 municipalities that it says, if you charge developers reasonable fees, and you could prove to us that these fees are reasonable, meaning to take the money and maintain your system, the elevated water tanks, the pump stations, the gravity sewer, if you prove to us that it's reasonable, then you could charge those fees. So be aware of the fees. You have to look and see what municipality charge for fees. Union County, I said, having issues with water, they're going to have a bond for $1 billion to bring water from a river 25 miles away because they're running out of water. I had a real estate agent calling me to the same development that Mike talked about in Indian Trail. He said, Patrick, what should I do? The county's telling me they're over capacity with water and sewer. I said, they are. And if I was you, I would stay away a little bit from thinking about that parcel until they figure out something and until the water is there. They're not going to shut off water from hospitals to give it to developers. So they're hurting themselves because that's bad planning. Another research you need to do is you need to look at the county and look at the municipalities, how they're doing. Do they have a lot of money in their fund balance? Are they capable of working with developers? Are they capable of giving incentive? Michael mentioned the chamber's office and the Asian restaurants and all that in Indian Trail. We talked about it over several meetings. Well, my intent when I was the town manager to approach council and say, they're bringing millions of dollars. We need to give them these 2 pieces of land as an incentive. So I always look and see if the towns look for incentive, if they're willing to give incentive. With COVID right now, a lot of jurisdictions, they're competing. Myself being a private sector guy more than a government sector, I entertain any business that comes into town. And I'm going to take it before another jurisdiction take it. So there's some research there that you need to do if you're not planning on having a feasibility study. So we include all that research in our concept. All right, now we're at the end. Now let's talk about, and please, Jenny, keep me posted about time so I won't exceed. I know Michael has given us 45 minutes and 15 for QA. So right now, if you went into that zoning map, or your consultant said, okay, your property is good for townhomes, that's what we call by right. So you don't need to get council's approval on that. You just need to satisfy the requirement that I went over on this chart. And if staff are happy, all of them, with that you complied with all the requirements, you submit the fees, they expect that everything hunky-dory, and then you get your project approved. They will keep council appraised and the town manager about that development, because they need to know. They need to know who they're dealing with, what is coming into town, but they will not vote on it. So it's staying with staff. One item I didn't cover right here, and I hope you see where I'm pointing at it, which is the U.S. water. This is the longest process in any land development. What we mean by U.S. water is the FEMA, EPA, they put some lakes, wetlands, creeks, river under the U.S. Corps of Engineers jurisdiction. That water belonged to all the citizens in the United States, and the federal government wants to make sure whatever you do, you're not impacting that. All right, if we talk about wetlands, down at the beach when I was there, we had a lot of wetlands. They allow us to have bridges, pedestrian bridges in them, as long as we don't impact the wetland itself. Sometimes if you need to move a small wetland out of the way, they have a rule. They say, okay, well, can you create another wetland somewhere else? We will allow you to do that. Those representatives, they exist everywhere. In many counties in North and South Carolina, and every state in the United States. They're good people to work with, but the process, sometimes it takes 8 to 9 months to deal with that. All right, recently, about a year and a half ago, lobbyists for big developers and big companies, they went to the Senate. They said, you know, we can't wait that long. You guys need to help us, put pressure on the U.S. Corps of Engineers to expedite the process. Now, why am I mentioning that? When you generate the schedule for your project, if you think your 50 townhomes is going to be constructed in 18 months or 2 years, you got to be careful. If you don't get that approval from the Corps in the right time, then you might be delayed, and delay is time value of money. So that schedule should include the revision by planning, engineering, the traffic study, all that stuff. We will give you an idea how long the process will take, because when people invest money, they need to stop on top of it and see, you know, how we're doing with our investment. You know, we could take the investment, but when we're going to generate money, you can't go back and say, well, our project is delayed 1 year. That is not going to be a happy ending. All right, so you know what by right is. Let's go to the rezoning that Michael mentioned. So if there is a piece of a property that's zoned for institutions, like a school, or maybe a museum, or maybe for single-family residential, and you want to put multifamily on that, you got to go for a rezoning. Now, this is a bit complicated process. What do we mean by that? All right, so you talk to the planning people and say, all right, you're rezoning. The first thing they're going to tell you is, and they will, or the manager will, look, don't waste your time. Council is not going to approve any apartments. But why? All the financial institutions right now, they're giving finance, they're giving developers money to do the multifamily. Yes, there's something I would like to share with you, is that a lot of students right now, they're living back home. A lot of students, they're coming from school, and living in apartments. They don't have to be on campus. A lot of employees, my daughter as an example, she lives with me. She doesn't have to go to work every single day. So COVID has some impact on it. What became to style these days are the multi-story condominiums and townhomes where you have your card, you swipe it on the door, you get into the hallway, you got elevators. Well, you know what? Developers going back into what we call garden apartments. What is garden apartments? Garden apartments, they're all over the place. They have steps. They're open to the atmosphere. So people, because of COVID, they're turning back into the garden apartments. Why? Because I don't want to be in that elevator with 5 people 3-4 times a day, fearing that I might give COVID to someone or somebody might give it to me. We're going to the extreme a little bit, but I'm telling you, every single thing could change some. Back to the rezoning. All right, so the planning people could tell you, look, council is not going to sign off on it. I will turn around and say, they're not going to sign off on it. Let me talk a little bit about council members. Every 2 years, some of them, they change. Some of them, they run for 2 years, some of them for 4 years. So if you could sit on that piece of land, let's say you presented something to them or planning department told you they're not going to approve it, you know, you turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to wait. Maybe different council member, things will be different in a couple of years, and I'll probably get it approved. That's one option. You don't want to use that option because you spent money, you bought the land, you have the concept in mind, you have investors, and you want to move forward. All right. I will tell you if they're going to approve it or not to save you time and money. But I've seen it many, many times where they said, we're not going to approve multifamily townhomes or apartments because traffic in town is so bad, but they surprise you. They come into a meeting one day and they approve it. Why? I don't know. They're 5 ordinary people. They serve in different districts. They have different attitude. They rely on planning. They rely on the manager. They rely on the attorney, but sometimes they change their mind. What I'm trying to say is don't give up. If you have something in mind, go for it. All right, so what they're going to do, the planning department people, they're going to tell you, all right, if you submit your info, it's going to take 3 to 4 months to get you scheduled to go before council. Why 3 to 4 months? There are in every jurisdiction other committees that they give opinion about your development. The main one is the planning committee. The planning committee, what they do is they give an opinion about the development, and staff and them, they share it to council. So they rely on that planning committee. The planning committee has members from different areas. That is good because it's good for the community to have different opinions and good opinions. In addition to the planning committee, you also have architectural committee. So if your architectural, the look of your development doesn't look good from landscaping or from construction material, lighting system, the signage, all that stuff, they could stop it. They could give bad comments and say, you know what, we're going to make recommendation to council not to approve it. Why? Because all what you're doing is you're having your contractor go into Home Depot, buy this cheap material, stick it on the 2x4s, buy cheap covering material or shingles or whatever, and that's not what we're looking for this community. Because if a Jenny has $500,000 or $1 million next to your development, the last thing you want is something to devalue that house. You know, she paid a lot of money for that, and I'm in a total agreement. The first thing I asked when I was a town manager, what kind of material are you going to use? You know, what kind of shingles, what kind of windows, stuff like that. We're going to see a little slide tells you the difference of cost when it comes to a cheap development, medium, or top-notch development. It kind of gives you an idea, and that's one part of the feasibility study. All right, so you go, the planning department, in addition to schedule a meeting with the planning committee, they have to schedule 1 to 2 meetings with the public. So they come in, they look at your development, and they measure by Google or whatever, 1/2 mile or a mile circle and they invite all those people that live within that circle to come in and give their opinion about the development. I forgot to mention a very, very important thing. If you're so knowledgeable, it doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are, please take your consultant with you when you meet with the planning committee or when you meet before council. They ask questions sometimes you might not be able to answer. So pay the consultants those 2 hours to be with you, to back you up, and they get you out of trouble. Because if you're not able to respond to 2, 3 questions, council might turn around and say, you do not have enough information. We would like you to get the information and come back to us at a later time. And that kicks your schedule more. All right, so let's say you have the 2 public meetings, the consultants and the planning committee, they jot down comments, and they share these comments with council when you are about to present before council. And the same thing for the planning committee. All right, let's talk about the review process, which is also, I forgot to mention for these items right here. When you come prepared with a conceptual plan done by a consultant, you are responding to most of their comments and their questions. Let me give you an example. If you come in by yourself, meet with the planning department with a sketch or something not top-notch, they're going to say, you need this and this and this. They might generate 50 comments because you're not familiar with these documents. But if you hire a consultant, he's going to be sitting with you in the meeting, he might end up with 5 comments. All right, so why lengthy comments? Too many of them are no good because they have to fit the planning department schedule. They might not get to them, or they might get tired of you telling you once, twice, 3 times, or one comment might lead to another comment. So reduction of comments during this process would get you faster to these 2 cells right here. All right, so let's go before council right now. So council has to vote on a zoning by law. You know, the zoning ordinance, it's a document that council approve, and it's required by the state that be recorded as a zoning ordinance. Attorneys are involved with that. They have to cover certain areas. And then council, that's why council has to vote on the approval process. All right, the next class, we're going to show you a presentation of what you need to submit to council. When I was a town manager, because I am a pro-private sector, I brought those consultant and the owner into my office and into a conference room, and I asked them to rehearse the presentation before me. And when they did that, I gave them my comments. Why I did that? Because I know how those 5 people in the mayor think, and I know what they're going to be picking on. So by doing that rehearsal, we were successful in getting a lot of these presentation approved, and a lot of those development approved because they answered every questions council asked. What are some of the questions that council cannot ask during the meeting? As an example, this traffic engineer right here, he's certified by state. That means if he does the traffic impact study for you, a council member could say, is that going to bring us more congestion? That's a general question. You will say no. Well, how do you know? I think it does bring congestion. You cannot ask the question. The attorney sitting next to the town manager, he's going to look at the member and he's going to say, sir, he's certified and he is doing it for best practices, and that's why he's a licensed engineer or architect. The same thing for the storm drainage. I have a council member. Every time somebody comes in and present, he turns around and say, are we going to get flooded? No, you're not. This is the liability of the consultant engineer to make sure that that development will not cause any flooding. If it does cause, you will hold the traffic engineer, the storm drainage engineer, the architect liable for that mistake. And they're all not only licensed, but they're also insured. So that's why the attorney always tells council, don't ask if it's going to impact the school. they already contacted the school and they're coming to us and telling us, look, the number of students per class is not going to exceed, and we got a letter from them and they're okay with that. The same thing with water and sewer. The consultant and the client gets a letter from them saying we could provide you with water and sewer. So in a way, having that attorney there also protect your right. But at the same time, they're going to ask these questions. And if you're prepared to answer those questions, and you answered every one of their questions, and you bring in a development that's going to pay the town, it's going to generate in taxes $120,000 to $200,000 a year, and the economy is bad and they're competing against each other, they're going to approve it for you. But the main thing is they want a good product, a product that does not impact Jenny's house, Jenny's traffic, Jenny's storm drainage, and Jenny's aesthetic, all that stuff. And I don't blame them, and I don't blame myself for being a town manager and being picky, because we have to provide protect the successful neighborhood. If you have any questions, please jot it down. And as Jenny instructed, maybe you guys could submit them to her. But right now we're going to go over lessons learned. How are we doing on time, Jenny?
Yeah, it's 8:50-ish. So...
Okay. So I'm going to hurry up a little bit if you don't mind. I'm going to go over the slides quickly.
Okay.
All right. Look at this property. An owner owns this property. It's about 20-something acres. You look at it and you say, you know what? I think it's a good property. No, it's not. You need to hire somebody to go over it. And look what happens. 1/3 of it in a floodplain you can't use. You can't build anything within this line. Look how steep it is. So the professional could tell you that. You see how much you can't use. On top of that, you need more land from your neighbor. We need to get that land done. We need to get it as part. We need to exchange land. Also, there is a wetland right here. You can't touch that wetland. That gives you an idea. So before you rush and go purchase a piece of property, the owner of this land hired us to subdivide it to make it more tempting for buyers to buy it. That is good, but they could see everything. They could see I'm only buying this. This is not going to do me any good. That parcel right here, it needs to be backfilled. They need to be aware of that. You're not going to know that. And this is the final product. He said, well, can I get more lots? Yes, we could give you 2 right here. All that is based on those documents that we review. I'm not going to go over these. These talk about feasibility study. You could read it. It kind of gives you an idea. I just want to go over the lessons learned. But please read it. Watch what the feasibility study could offer you. Very beneficial. As an example. And this is a summary of the stuff that you look at. This is what your investor is going to look at, the conclusion of that feasibility study. All right, if you please look at the education, you got to have some kind of knowledge. You got to be a real estate agent, broker, analyst, or a businessman, business management in real estate. You have to have some background. Otherwise, you need to rely on consultants to do feasibility studies or any other studies for you. Again, have connections. You know, you have to have the connections. And then also the feasibility study talks about studies we do, demographic studies, a family study, gender study, where is the poor, the traffic, etc., etc. Understand the market, finding the right property, and we go over all that stuff too. One member approached us. He said, I have 9 acres. What can I do for him? Quick one that it says, look, based on the code, the zoning, blah, 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 we could put that many townhomes for you, 3-story high. And one thing is that we need to worry about is the sewer. You need to have a pump station, or you need to connect to the next neighborhood. Water is right here. You don't have to worry about that. That street is not going to be widening for a long time. This is, again, we do a new generation of it. This now we're saying we're going to have a swimming pool, community, we're going to have the trail, we're going to put more features that council ask about. That's their right to ask about. They cannot ask you to have a community center. You have to have a community. No, but they favor having all that stuff because they want it to be a good community. By the way, this is work-live community. That is the concept that we do for you. We do a three-dimensional concept. We could put cameras here, next to the window, and we could go all the way to the inside. Now, this included within that $5,000 fee, which is not a lot. To hire CAD operators in our company to do this, these take many, many hours, but it's okay. We want to provide a good service and we're looking for the final product. We could even take building by itself, put the lighting, show you what kind of material we use. We use a brick, we use a stone, whatever it takes. And we could go inside and do three-dimensional for every room. That costs a little bit more money. We could put the lighting system. I have never seen in my entire life a developer coming before council to get a project approved with a 3D for the inside. They always say, okay, it's a 3-bedroom, that's the square footage, we're going to sell it for this much, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about that in the next session. Very important item for a chair, for a member in the chamber. I went to Charlotte and looked at the cost. Please look at this. This is part of a feasibility study. It tells you where it's at. On Google, you could look them up. It tells you the cost per square foot. And look, it varies. Those townhomes, they vary from 162 to up to 300 something. Oh, here they are, right here. $450,000. What is the cost per square foot? What is the total square footage? Do you have to have a HOA? Some of them will tell you yes or no. Insurance, look at the cost of the insurance, taxes, and P&I, principal and interest every month. This is another development. A member bought it. It's existing. What did we do to it? They asked us to say, can we get more lots? Well, before you bought this development, you should have known that you cannot use this area. This is a common area. All these homes that they're highlighted with yellow, they bought it based on that common areas. So let's see what we could do. We took them to the county. We met with them and they say, well, you know what? You could expand the parcels. Watch what we did. We expanded the parcels. So Jenny, instead of coming in and saying, you know, it's 1.5 acres, now it's 2 acres. That's going to attract her to buy it. And we wanted this easement to stay part of the people that are going to take these roadways over, which is the state. The water on these roadways will go into the easement. We don't want any of the property owners to be responsible for that. We also added 3 lots right here. But what are these going to require? The county said you need to test the soil. Please, 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 if you're 100% sure about buying a property, part of the investigation is to have a geotechnical firm go out there and take some samples, make sure the soil is not bad, make sure you don't have rocks, so it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars to excavate the roadways. And we also, what we show in green right here, we told them, look, if you expand these lots, this is the additional area that you're going to get, including those 3 lots, is about 9 acres, it's 8.5 acres. That's not bad at all. And the county agreed that we could do that. One item we could save you money on, rather than, quickly, if I may, Jenny, on a project last week, 2 acres on Independence Boulevard in Charlotte, a surveyor wanted $9,000 to survey that. We found one that could do it with $2,000. But you know, when we do the concept for you, we don't ask you to hire a surveyor, because if the project does not go, all what we do is we go. Right now, every municipality has the topography and has the boundary. We include our concept in it. We done that for a member in Winston-Salem. We didn't, so we saved the member $9,000. Take those $9,000 spending on the concept in the feasibility study. And we start working until you could see how we developed the concept until we got over here. 50 feet difference in elevations. And then you got the wetland right here. The owner did not know that he was going to face that problem. If he knew that, they got to me one day before they bought the property. for people to respond these days and have meeting with and get information, it's going to take a week, 2 weeks to do that. And now we generated this concept. It's to the nearest 1,000th of an inch. We do it. It comply with most of the requirement, and we put it without doing the boundary survey. We could fit it later on when we have to do the boundary survey. A survey has to be done, but not right now. So we try to save the client some money. And then, you know what? The client said, well, Patrick, I don't like this. I don't like that. Maybe we need to change. It's easy to make the changes. That's part of that task that you assign us to do. So we flipped some condominiums, turn them around. This one right here, and if I may, if you allow people to park in a driveway that has 2 cars, this one is going to look like a parking lot. I will tell you, do not do that, because a lot of people that buy the townhomes do not like that. That's why you see how we flip some buildings sometimes. That's better. They like those circles in the middle. That's better too. So back and forth with our member in Winston-Salem, back and forth. And then we got to a point that this roadway is going to cost $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 to cross the wetland. She said, Patrick, hold. I said, no problem. I will hold. I'm not here for the fee. I'm here to make sure that you're getting the right. And believe me, it does not cover our costs, but I'm a member. I'm proud to be a member. I want to assist as much as I can. I want that final project later on. And this is what the county approved, something completely different. But you know what? It was an excellent meeting. And one thing I like to comment about the member in Winston-Salem, she said, Patrick, I want to learn. I want you to teach me everything. I want to go be with you and when we meet with the town. It was a very successful meeting. She learned a lot. We're willing to go step by step with you to make sure that when you get to the approval process, you are 100% knowledgeable and you could communicate all this information to your investors if you have investors. Last item, Jenny, we also help you assemble projects. This is in Mount Holly. A client came in and said, look, we bought 5 of them. We will buy 2 more. One was taken out by a state project. Can you help us put all these together? We could also tell you if there is a redevelopment project in downtown of any city, because we could tell you, look, they're redeveloping everything. They put in landscaping, lighting, they're doing facades for building. We could also keep you posted about projects like that. I'm sorry, Jenny, I went over my time and I'm open.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very, very informative. I really learned a lot. I wish I have that project you mentioned in the case study. So anyone have any questions? Let's see in the chat box. Not yet. Anyone have any questions? I do have one. Oh.
Hi, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for the information. It's very detailed. I feel a lot of blanks for us. And I have a question. If I already have a lot zoning for residential 22 multifamily, so if on half acre, if I plan to put a unit on that, will city planning will be able to approve that kind of project, or we're looking for some other fact to approve such projects?
Well, what's good about it is you're staying with residential. That's not bad. It's not like going from residential to commercial or putting a gas station or something like that. I've seen a lot of these projects happen that if we see for some reason that the 8-unit apartment or townhomes is needed in that area, and you're coming up with good projects, you're not impacting the properties around you. Yes, I would say don't give up on that, because I've seen them in many places. And a lot of times, if you want to build it and lease it, a lot of transient people that work in that particular area, or they like the location, you will see them knocking at your door. But to answer your question, I would never say no to anything. You have the parcel, you got to try. But in this particular case, it's a small project, so you might not need to go into depth and the planning department might turn around and say yay or nay. So you don't have to go through any cost. So if you get to that point, and I'll be more than happy just if you tell me where it's located at, to briefly look at it, and I will turn around and say, go forward with it. I've seen them done many places.
Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. I will contact you for those details.
You're welcome, sir. And Jenny, if you have any questions, I know Michael's got my email address, and they could forward them to me. I'll be more than happy to respond. I'll respond probably to all of them within a day or two, and they could contact me too. Michael's got my phone number, and they could contact me. If I don't respond, I will definitely get back with you.
How about maybe you can share with us your email and contact information? A lot of people are still sending in questions. They're very curious and interested in your topic.
Would you like me to do it now, Jenny, or would you like me to forward it to you at a later time? Which one? It doesn't matter.
Probably type in the chat box, maybe.
Okay. I have never. Okay, the chat right here.
Right, and reply to everyone.
Where am I? Jenny right here. Everyone right here. Reply right here.
Right, chat and reply everyone.
Okay, so just type it right here, right?
Yeah, and just your email address or maybe phone number or.
Okay, let me do a phone number, and then whoever I'm communicating with, I'll give you both. I'm sorry, my laptop is sooner or later I'm going to be blind. It's okay.
So for those of you who wanted to have the deck that Patrick shared today, make sure that you registered our meeting. So go to the meeting fly. We have the QR code on the bottom. You just input your email address, and we will send all the people with the email address in this registration form.
Okay, great. All right, everyone got the number? Mr. Sadek's number, 843-467-8478.
And here's the email, Jenny. Let's see, make sure Aesthetic Concepts US.com. And I will, and Michael also have our websites. And if you get a chance to browse over the website, I work with engineers and architects. We have a small conglomerate that's been in the business for many years. They're the best in the Southeast. It gives you an idea about the stuff that we can do.
That's great. Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. And if you're interested in future webinars, feel free to join our CCCC, the Chamber of Commerce as well. Michael, do you have anything to say or?
Is there any other question? We can have maybe two more questions.
Two more questions. I think James have a question about.
I want to make sure that.
Yeah.
James? Okay. The question I had is that you mentioned, Patrick, that normally when developers go before city councils and town councils, they never do a 3D rendition. Do you think it's a benefit, or you think that'll be overkill?
I'm going to tell you something happened with one project for one of our members. Mm-hmm. When we presented the stuff before the town administrator, mm-hmm. And that was in Weddington, which is a beautiful town, expensive homes. The first thing she said, "Wow," that was very impressive. I don't see a lot of people do it, James, because they don't want to go through the cost. We do it because we're doing it for us. We have passion for it. We don't make a lot of money, but we also training our staff to get good in 3D, because one last service we're planning on adding is the interior design. But I guarantee you, I guarantee, I have never seen one with a 3D. Now they do 2D elevations. You've seen them before.
Yes.
The front, the back, the top, and all that, but not to a point where we could give you 20 slides that we'll put a camera everywhere and you could see the stores. You could see the front, the back, three-dimensional. I think you will impress not only your investors, but also town council.
Correct.
And from experience, I guarantee you it's a plus, and it will lead to probably approval, because, and we could also put backgrounds behind it to make it reflect the existing condition.
Okay. I think that's a fantastic idea. I've never seen that. That's outside the box thinking. And I really think that you're correct. That would sell a lot of the town council people. They would really love that concept. So yeah, we need to work together on that. I'll reach out to you on that. That's a great idea.
Absolutely. And we could take certain load of the 3D, but you know, James, it takes so long. But I'm telling you, 4 years I sat behind the dais, and nobody came in except with 2D elevations. Well, they don't tell you much. Right. And I had some developers coming in, going to another side of town, taking pictures for another project. And I knew where that project was. Right. And they were saying the project is going to look like that. So I made a comment just to make you laugh. I said, when you finish building it, I'm going to be out there looking at the front. And I want to make sure it's not looking like that building somewhere else. Right. But no, it makes you unique. And the best investors, they like it. Right. Because if we are in the conference room with you, we could use the software and the rendering, and also we could animate it too in the same room. So it's not only for council, both of them could see that. Okay. Yeah, we could apply animation to that too. Wonderful. But that's an excellent question, both of you. For Gene, I'm telling you, a lot of 1 acre, acre and a half, people end up making them small apartments, very economical, and they spread all over the community.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I do have a quick question, because you were town manager before. Do you know how often or how long does it take to change zoning to rezoning from, for example, single family to multifamily?
If everything is done properly and you stay on schedule with staff, 4 months. Oh. Yes. Not bad. 4 months doing the public meeting with all the committees, meeting with staff. That's not long at all. And it gives the client and the consultant to prepare better for that. I mean, you need that time. So you will watch any incoming. Last item I want to mention is that during those years, I've learned, I mean, it's scary a little bit, you know, it's psychological. I learned how, when each council is going to say something and what's he going to say. So I watch a lot of those videos. Right now, they tape every meeting, especially because COVID. So if you come in and say, I'm in Greensboro, Patrick, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the last 10 meetings that they've done and learn about those council members, because I want to learn how to approach them when I'm with my client. So it's scary a little bit, but hey, look, more power to us if we know how to penetrate them.
Yeah, thank you. We do have one more question coming in the chat box. Can we have retail or commercial on ground level and second and third floor apartments near college? It's from Li Xingfu.
I'm sorry, Jenny. I understand about the stores and the apartments on top, but what was the question?
Yeah, can we have retail or commercial on ground level and second and third floor apartments near college?
Yes, absolutely. I tell you, you could live on top. This is what we call also work-live community. So a lot of people that they buy them, sometimes they keep the shop, but they lease the residential part or vice versa. But yes, you can. you could do that. That is something will work great next to universities and colleges. You got the university next door, the shop at the bottom, and you're living on top. Absolutely. A lot.
Oh no, I was going to say we're actually doing one right now at the corner of Tarboro here in Raleigh, Tarboro and Lane Street. It is retail on the bottom floor, residential on the top 2 floors with a garden top area. So yeah, that's absolutely right.
One thing I like to add to that, I will make sure that the construction of that, and of course the International Building Code is going to call for it, because I lived in apartments when I was younger and at a later age too, that there is a slab, I don't want to get into too much details, that separate the shops from the residential in regard to fire, noise, anything. So there are some things the developer will do to make sure it's a livable community, that one doesn't impact the other. And James, I'm pretty sure you guys look into that too.
Yes.
Take consideration in regard to that.
Yes. Yes. And actually the city council loved that concept because of the increased density. You know, because Raleigh right now is very expensive to live in, so they're pushing higher density. So there, we did.
And James, you're encouraging pedestrian activities, bicyclist activities. Yes. You don't have to worry about parking.
Right.
The students could walk to school, put the pack on his back, walk to school. Safer, also safer. And then you will force the municipality to provide the safety for pedestrians too, if they don't exist.
Right.
So it's a working together deal, and I love it myself. Jenny, yes, it can be done, and thank you, James, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both, Patrick and James. Okay, good.
Yeah, that was Li Xing's question, and I think James and Patrick both answered the question. Thank you.
Okay, that's exciting. Okay, thanks. Very informative and very nice. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time, and thank you, Michael, for allowing us to have these events so we could share info and allow us to provide services that could benefit our members.
Okay, any more questions? So, okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you very much, Patrick. Hope we'll have see you next time in the next event. And thank you everyone for your time for joining. Have a nice evening.